Hey, so I was gonna make a video on what a foamer was, because that's some good information to know when watching my or other transit YouTubers videos, and some people don't know what that word means. But then I thought, hey, foamer is actually kind of a more broad term for different subcultures on the internet. And I thought, well, it's probably better to explain the different types of foamers. So I came up with this simple flow chart here to help illustrate what I'm explaining in a visual way. So we're gonna do that. So the everything comes off of the rail fan blob here, and also the in quotes rail fan blob, but we'll talk about that later. So you have five main categories. You have urban foamers, you got public transit foamers, you got classical foamers, you got YouTubers, and you got freight elitists. We're gonna talk about urban foamers first. Um, so you got some different cities I put here. There's more cities that can go here. These are just like the broadest uh, cultures that I could find. So we got Toronto, New York, Philadelphia, Vancouver, and Montreal. New York foamers, I think, are the most well known, probably for the stuff that's happened down here. You got conquestors and you got urban explorers. Conquestors are basically people who like to trespass and do extreme things on public transport. You can see the guy here surfing a train. And then urban explorers, which are people who like to trespass into places, not necessarily public transport or whatever, but that they do trespass into public transport. And they like to just go walking around, exploring the urban landscape, basically. Um, it's not just New York foamers that do that, but it's a large majority of conquestors and armored explorers are from New York. So New York foamers kind of have the reputation of being a little crazy, maybe assaulting one or two police officers, whatever. Toronto foamers, it's kind of the same except toned down a little bit. I don't know of any Toronto foamers who have assaulted a police officer. I'm sure there's many, but they're not as well known as people from New York for doing that. And then you got Vancouver foamers. Vancouver foamers are the polar opposite of New York. They are some of the nicest people that I've met. They are so chill. And that's kind of indicative of the region of North America that they're from, I think. I think people from the West are a bit nicer than people from the East, but whatever. Montreal foamers, like Toronto foamers, but in French, and Philadelphia foamers, which I can't remember why I put this here. I'm sure I'm sure there's a reputation for them. I can't remember it though. So, I think we're gonna get in quotes rail fans out of the way first. Um, so conquestors and urban explorers, they like to call themselves rail fans, and transit enthusiasts, they are not. They only make the real rail fans and transit enthusiasts look bad. And then you got this dotted line coming over to bus foamers, which I think should be obvious. If it's not, then buses don't run on rails. So that's why it's a dotted line, because rail fans is supposed to be, in quotes, is supposed to be derogatory. But I'm not being derogative towards bus foamers. It's just buses don't run on rails, so they can't really be called rail fans. Um, okay, so I think that leads nicely into our next main category, which is public transport foamer. Here you have that leading to bus foamers and urban rail foamers, but you also have that leading to 8-year-old foamers. And what I mean by that is small little children who like to take their mom's iPhone and take pictures of the subway coming in, which is not a bad thing, but it is a category that exists, and I thought I should mention it. It's also, this is different from children who are interested in trains, who like to stare out the front window. It's literally just a foamer, but younger. Oh, something I forgot for urban foamers. You have trans foamers, and there's this red separation wall here from in quotes rail fans and conquestors because trans foamers are probably some of the nicest foamers and the coolest foamers I've met, along with Vancouver foamers. But they are the polar opposite of these, and that's why there's this red separation wall, so this doesn't get contaminated with this. Next, we have freight elitists. Let's talk about that. So, freight elitists are people who like rail, but only like freight rail and only foam freight rail. And they don't like passenger rail because they think it like gums up the freight rail. And that leads down into rolling museum elitists. They're not necessarily freight elitists, but it's kind of related where you have people who are adamant that old rolling stock is always better than new rolling stock, and sometimes that's the case. It's just not always, as you can see in the picture here. But yeah, that kind of leads from public transport foamers as well, because you have people who are insistent that old public transport vehicles are better than new ones, and sometimes that's the case again, but it's not always. Sometimes new stuff is really needed, and old stuff really isn't that good. So let's go into classical foamers, because I think that's kind of the next big category. Classical foamers, you have the image I think of is somebody who drives down to a rail crossing or a suburban station and sits there for like 5 hours a day, trying to catch mainline trains, and they don't usually take public transport or trains. They just drive because it's sometimes it's where they live. They can't really access public transport, and sometimes it's just they don't want to take it. But yeah, and then you have the UK version because there has to be a UK version of everything. And then leading from classical foamers, you have boomer foamers. These are people who are into trains, who are over the age of 50, that were around during like the Conrail, like beginning of Amtrak era, and also like before Amtrak, and it's just very old people who are interested in trains, which is cool. But sometimes their opinions are a lot similar to freight elitists. And then you have train museum volunteers, typically old people who are interested in trains who want to actually do something with that interest. And this is something I actually respect, despite it being an offshoot of Boomer Foamers. But they are the people who run the all of the great legacy trains in the museums that you can ride on and are really cool. Also branching off from classical foamers, you got tripodders and photography enthusiasts. This is kind of the same as freight elitists. These are people basically who have more of an interest in photography and photography of trains than typical classical foamers. And then you have the tripodders who will take tripods into public transport stations to either shoot pictures or film video or whatever. And I think that transitions nicely into our last category, which is YouTubers, which also branches off of tripodders for obvious reasons. But you don't need to have a tripod to be a YouTuber. And then that also branches off into, in quotes, YouTubers, which is basically somebody who's trying their best to make videos, but it's not getting a lot of views, and they're not that good, and typically under 20 subscribers. Not me, because I have over that, and it's not like most of my subscribers came from stuff that wasn't transport related. But anyway, and then last thing, the in quotes YouTubers are branching off of Toronto foamers, because there are a lot of what I would consider in quotes YouTubers from Toronto. So yeah, that is the entire list, I think, and I hope that gave you a better understanding of what a foamer is.